Hello, my name is Philip Totaro. I'm the founder and CEO of market research firm IntelStor. Welcome to your weekly dose of truth to power. Truth to Power examines data driven insights for the energy sector with a focus on renewables. On this week's episode, I'm going to dig into the ruling made earlier this week by the U.S. Federal District Court Judge Patti Saris regarding the President's executive order halting wind and solar permitting in the USA, and particularly the impact on the offshore wind sector. Does offshore wind in the USA have a reason to celebrate today? Well, sort of, but unfortunately, mostly not. As a champion of the industry, I really do hate sounding pessimistic, but despite an important legal ruling, the damage to the industry has unfortunately already been done. As expected, a federal district court judge has declared that an executive order from earlier this year by the president, which banned wind and solar permitting, has been determined to be unlawful. Those of us who have been watching the industry and are reasonably familiar with some of the case law and government procedures largely expected this outcome. But the executive order was issued in January on the president's first day in office, and it's taken just under 11 months to decide on this legal challenge brought by the attorney generals of 17 different states plus the District of Columbia. As I noted in the very first episode of Truth to Power back in April, to have the president even suggest that there would be uncertainty or lack of permitting for things like onshore wind or solar on federal lands, or in particular offshore wind, would risk driving billions of dollars away from the United States into other countries, or at the very least, away from offshore wind, a sector that has a potential to be a multi-trillion-dollar industry. Since January, when the executive order was issued, and since April in particular, when Empire Wind saw their project construction halted, there have been 6 projects worth a total of more than $15 billion in project CapEx and another $10 billion in economic benefit, which were stopped from active development. Project developers and investors have run for the hills, and no one can really blame them. The current administration in the US has effectively hung out a sign that says we're no longer open for business, and everybody took note. So while I would love to suggest that it's a wonderful thing that this ruling from Judge Saris, it's done something good for the industry, it's really just served to reinforce that if an administration fails to account for government procedures which are set forth in the law, you're going to have things like executive orders overturned. That's happened throughout history. Laws are always going to be stronger than executive orders, but at the end of the day, overturning this executive order doesn't really help the industry recover from the damage that's been inflicted now. Ørsted, RWE, Shell, NG, EDPR, Invenergy, Energy Re, and Total Energies, as well as Corio, they've all been forced to formally stop active development of projects due to lack of engagement from BOEM on permitting. Many of those developers have said they will continue to hold on to their lease rights, but they will favor project development in other markets until the US appears to be a favorable market again for offshore wind. My fear is that they'll be waiting on the sidelines for many years, despite having paid the US government hundreds of millions of dollars for the lease rights in the first place. It frankly may take until 2030 to get the industry back on track, but we will get there. Now, will the government in the meantime appeal this ruling? Absolutely. Setbacks in other cases related to things like the Revolution Wind Project, Sunrise Project, and Marwind Project in Maryland and Delaware have meant that the administration has not succeeded in what it is that they're ultimately trying to do, which is disrupt offshore wind project development enough to get states to agree to buy more natural gas in the meantime. Let us recall what happened with the projects which were under construction and got halted. They all resumed construction either through swift legal challenge or an agreement to buy gas. So now let's talk in practical terms about the actual consequences of this entire situation to the industry. Project developers who were directly impacted by the executive order to halt permitting could now use this ruling to go sue the US federal government. They can try to recoup the billions of dollars that they've lost resulting from project delays or an inability to proceed with construction due to the lack of issuance of permits, which are subject to federal jurisdiction. But the administration just doesn't want to lose, and they will try a few things to not only save face, but to really act in a completely petulant and retaliatory fashion. You can expect an appeal of this ruling by Judge Saris to the Supreme Court next year. And in the meantime, BOEM is still going to continue to drag their feet on permit issuance and permit re-review, which they still maintain is within their jurisdiction. And they can still refuse to hold auctions during the remaining 3 years of the administration's tenure. So offshore wind is by no means out of the woods, unfortunately. Also, don't be surprised if there's retaliation from the government in the form of holding oil and gas lease auctions for areas which are currently or previously designated for offshore wind. If they do that, that type of a petulant response would be consistent with the administration's pattern and behavior, but it would also preclude additional offshore wind from being built even after the administration has left office. Frankly speaking, folks, you cannot have a system of government or the rule of law if the change of administration means that you're unwilling to honor agreements that the government itself previously made. When it comes to wind energy, the current administration in the USA is behaving worse than the foreign governments that they claim are corrupt or inept regarding things like national security or immigration policies. The good news is there's cause for hope and optimism that the US offshore wind market will start getting back on track. People are starting to stand up and fight back. We won't let anyone derail a multi-trillion-dollar industry and take away job opportunities and take away an opportunity for us to maintain a leadership position in the global energy market. We're here. We're not going anywhere. Get used to it. Thank you for joining me this week. I'm Philip Totaro, and this has been your weekly dose of truth to power. Follow us on IntelStor's YouTube channel, as well as your favorite audio platforms. And visit www.intelstor.com to join more than 200,000 subscribers to our renewable energy data solutions. A full analysis of the renewable energy market in the USA and the rest of the world is available to subscribers. And you can register today for the next Wind Summit event in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Visit www.windsummit.org and join hundreds of your industry colleagues to discuss all the latest trends in O&M. We hope to see you there.